Montana Territory, 1888. Sarah Montgomery had stopped believing in mercy 3 states ago. The stagecoach lurched to a halt in front of a weathered ranch house, and she gripped the seat edge with white knuckles. Through the dusty window, she could see him. Daniel Chambers, the man whose advertisement she'd answered with, lies thick enough to choke on. Tall, broad-shouldered, standing on the porch with his hat in his hands, like he'd been waiting. Like he actually wanted her to arrive. Her hand moved instinctively to her rounded belly. 6 months along, and there was no hiding it anymore. Not under the loosest traveling dress, not with careful posture, not with prayers whispered in the dark hours of endless travel. The baby moved beneath her palm, a flutter of life that filled her with equal parts terror and fierce love. "Miss Montgomery?" The driver opened the door, offering his hand. She took it, because there was nothing else to do. Her legs shook as she stepped down, the autumn wind catching her skirts. Montana stretched endlessly in every direction, all golden prairie grass and distant mountains painted purple by the fading light. It was beautiful. It was the middle of nowhere. It was her last chance. Daniel Chambers came down the porch steps slowly, like he was approaching a spooked horse. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe early 30s, with dark brown hair that needed cutting and blue eyes that saw too much. Work-hardened hands, a face weathered by sun and wind, but kind. God help her, his face was kind. "Miss Montgomery." His voice was low, careful. "I'm Daniel Chambers." "I know." Her own voice came out steadier than she felt. "I'm Sarah." His eyes dropped to her belly. She saw the exact moment he understood. His expression shifted, surprise flickering across his features. Then something else. Something that made her throat tighten with unexpected emotion. Not anger. Not disgust. Understanding. "The letters," he said quietly. "You didn't mention—" "I couldn't." The words burst out before she could stop them. "I know what you're thinking. I know what I should have said. But if I told you the truth, you never would have sent for me, and I had nowhere else to go." Her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I'll get back on the stage. I just need a moment to—" "Stop." He held up one hand. "Just stop." She stopped, waited for him to tell her to leave, waited for the rejection she'd been bracing for since the day she'd realized she was carrying another man's child, since the day that man had abandoned her without a backward glance. Daniel studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that shattered every defense she'd carefully built. He smiled. Not a big smile, just a slight curve of his mouth that reached his eyes and made them crinkle at the corners. "When's the baby due?" The question was so unexpected she nearly stumbled. "March. Early March," the midwife said. "That's good timing. Winter will be over. Spring's easier." He glanced at the driver, who was hauling her small trunk down from the top of the coach. "That all you brought?" "Yes. I didn't have much to bring." "That's all right. We'll manage." He moved past her to take the trunk, muscles flexing beneath his work shirt as he lifted it easily. "Come on inside. You must be exhausted from the journey." Sarah didn't move. Couldn't move. Her mind was trying to catch up with what was happening, and failing completely. "Mr. Chambers." "Daniel." "Daniel." His name felt strange on her tongue. Intimate. Real. "You're not sending me back?" He turned, the trunk balanced on one shoulder, and looked at her with those impossibly blue eyes. "Sarah, you came all this way. You're carrying a child. Where exactly would I send you back to?" "I don't know," she admitted, the truth raw and painful. "Nowhere good." "Then why would I send you there?" He jerked his head toward the house. "Come on. It's getting cold, and you need to sit down before you fall down. We can talk inside." She followed him because there was nothing else to do, and because something in his steady presence made her believe he might actually mean what he said. The house was small but solid, built to withstand Montana winters. Inside, a fire burned in the stone fireplace, casting warm light over simple furniture and clean floors. A man's space, but cared for, not desperate or dirty, just alone. "Sit." Daniel set her trunk down and guided her to a chair near the fire. "When did you last eat?" "This morning. Some bread the driver shared." He made a sound of disapproval and moved to the kitchen area. "I'm not much of a cook, but I can manage soup and biscuits. That work for you?" "You don't have to." "Sarah." He looked at her over his shoulder, and the gentleness in his expression made her chest ache. "Yes, I do. You're in my house now. That makes you my responsibility. But I lied to you. You left some things out. That's not the same as lying." He pulled out a pot and started working, movements efficient and practiced. "You're here because you need help. I'm here because I need a wife. Those facts haven't changed." She watched him work, trying to understand this man who was nothing like she'd expected. "Why did you advertise for a mail-order bride?" "Same reason most men do, I expect. Ranch is too big to run alone. House is too quiet. Gets cold at night with nobody to share the fire." He stirred something in the pot, not looking at her. "I'm 32 years old. Figured it was time to build something that lasts longer than a season's cattle drive. And you don't mind that I'm carrying another man's child?" His hand stilled. Then he turned, leaning against the counter, and met her eyes directly. "I mind that some man treated you badly enough that you had to run halfway across the country. I mind that you're afraid right now, when you should be excited about becoming a mother. I mind that you thought you had to lie to find safety." His voice softened. "But the baby?" "No, Sarah. I don't mind the baby." Something broke loose in her chest, something she'd been holding tight for months. "Why?" "Because that child didn't do anything wrong. And neither did you." He came back to the fire, crouching in front of her chair so they were eye level, close enough that she could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes, the faint scar on his jaw, the lines that spoke of laughter and hard work. "I don't know what happened to you back east, but I know this. You're here now. You're safe. And whatever you need, whatever that baby needs, I'll make sure you have it." Tears burned her eyes. She'd cried so much over the past months that she thought she'd run dry, but apparently not. "You're a good man, Daniel Chambers." "I try to be." He stood, offering his hand. "Come on. Soup's almost ready. After you eat, I'll show you the bedroom. It's small, but the bed's comfortable, and you need rest." She took his hand and let him pull her up, his grip steady and warm. "Where will you sleep?" "I've got a bedroll. I can sleep in the barn until..." He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. Until you're ready for other arrangements. She understood what he wasn't saying. He was giving her time. Space. The chance to trust him before expecting anything from her. It was more than she dared hope for. Thank you. No need for thanks. We're going to be partners, Sarah. Partners look out for each other. They ate soup and biscuits in comfortable silence. Sarah, too exhausted and overwhelmed to manage conversation. The food was simple, but good, warming her from the inside. Through the window, she watched darkness fall over the prairie, stars beginning to emerge in the vast Montana sky. It's beautiful here, she said quietly. It can be harsh too. Winter's hard. Spring mud is worse. Summer heat makes you wish for winter again. He smiled slightly. But yeah, it's beautiful. I've never lived anywhere like this. Where did you live before? Philadelphia, then Pittsburgh for a while. Always cities. She looked down at her bowl. Always places where people knew your business and judged you for it. Won't find much of that out here. Too busy surviving to worry about judging. He stood, collecting their dishes. Come on. Let me show you the bedroom before you fall asleep in that chair. The bedroom was small but clean, with a real bed frame and a patchwork quilt that looked handmade. A dresser with a mirror. A trunk at the foot of the bed. Simple things, but to Sarah they looked like luxury. This is yours now, Daniel said from the doorway. I'll bring your trunk in. Daniel. She turned to face him. I don't understand why you're being so kind to me. He was quiet for a moment, his expression thoughtful. My mother died when I was 10. Complications from childbirth, the doctor said. But I think it was more than that. I think she was alone too much, carrying burdens too heavy for one person. His eyes met hers. I won't let that happen to you, Sarah. Whatever else happens between us, I won't let you be alone. After he left, Sarah sat on the bed and let herself cry. Not from sadness this time, but from relief so overwhelming it felt like drowning. She'd traveled so far expecting rejection, expecting to have to beg for even the smallest kindness. Instead, she'd found a man who looked at her growing belly and said he'd love them both. She pressed her hand to where the baby moved, feeling the flutter of tiny feet or fists. We're going to be okay, she whispered. I think we're actually going to be okay. Outside, the Montana wind whistled around the corners of the house, but inside the fire burned warm and steady. Sarah lay down on the comfortable bed, pulled the handmade quilt over her aching body, and for the first time in months, she let herself hope. The next morning, Sarah woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Sunlight streamed through the small window, painting golden stripes across the floor. For a moment, disoriented by sleep, she thought she was still on the stagecoach. Then memory returned, and with it a flutter of anxiety. She'd really done it. She'd come all this way. And somehow, impossibly, Daniel Chambers hadn't sent her away. She dressed carefully, her fingers clumsy on the buttons of her dark green dress. One of only 3 she owned. All of them let out as much as possible to accommodate her changing body. All of them showing obvious signs of wear. In Philadelphia, she'd had better. But Philadelphia felt like another lifetime now. When she emerged from the bedroom, Daniel was at the stove, cooking. He'd already been outside, she realized. His hair was damp, like he'd washed at the pump, and he'd changed into a clean blue work shirt. "Morning." He glanced at her, then pulled out a chair. "Sit down. Breakfast is almost ready. I can help. You can start helping tomorrow. Today you're going to rest and get used to the place." He brought her coffee, then a plate of bacon, eggs, and biscuits that made her stomach growl despite her nervousness. They ate in silence at first, Sarah too aware of him across the small table. In daylight, he was even more handsome than she'd realized. Strong features, capable hands, eyes that seemed to see straight through her careful walls. "I need to ride out to check the fence line today," he said finally. "North pasture. Should take most of the day." "All right. You should rest. Explore the house, make yourself comfortable. There's food in the pantry if you get hungry." He paused. "There's also a Winchester over the door. Do you know how to shoot?" "My father taught me. Basic shooting. It's been years. If you see anyone coming and you don't recognize them, get the rifle. Don't open the door." His expression was serious. "We're pretty isolated out here. Most folks are good people, but not all." A chill ran down her spine. "Are you expecting trouble?" "No. But I'd rather you be prepared than caught off guard." He stood, carrying his dishes to the basin. "I'll be back before dark. If I'm not, there's lanterns lit. Don't worry." After he left, the silence of the house settled around her like a heavy blanket. Sarah washed the dishes, then explored slowly. The main room held the kitchen area. A table with 4 chairs. 2 comfortable chairs near the fireplace. And shelves lined with books. Real books. More than she'd expected. She ran her fingers along the spines, reading titles. Shakespeare. Whitman. Mark Twain. A worn Bible. Books on ranching, weather patterns, animal husbandry. Daniel Chambers was educated. That surprised her, though she supposed it shouldn't have. His letters had been well written, thoughtful. His letters. The ones she'd answered with half-truths and desperate hope. Guilt gnawed at her stomach, but she pushed it away. She'd done what she had to do, what any woman in her situation would have done. Survival wasn't pretty or noble. It was just necessary. The pantry was well stocked. Flour, sugar, coffee, dried beans, canned vegetables, preserved fruits, salt pork hanging from hooks, potatoes in barrels. He'd been preparing for winter, she realized. Preparing for 2 people. In the bedroom, she unpacked her small trunk. A few dresses, undergarments, her mother's silver hairbrush, the only valuable thing she owned. A daguerreotype of her parents, dead now 5 years. The small collection of letters from Daniel, tied with string. She sat on the bed, holding those letters, reading them again. His words had been kind, honest, straightforward. He'd described his ranch, his life, what he hoped for in a wife. Partnership, he'd written. Someone to build a future with. Not flowery romance, but genuine warmth. And she'd written back with lies of omission. Never mentioning the pregnancy. Never mentioning that she was ruined. Desperate. Fleeing. "God forgive me," she whispered. The baby kicked hard, making her gasp. She rubbed the spot, feeling the shape of a tiny foot pressing out. I know. I know you're there." A smile tugged at her lips, despite everything. "We're going to make this work." Somehow. She spent the afternoon resting, reading, trying not to think too hard about the strange turn her life had taken. When the sun began to sink toward the mountains, she started to worry. Daniel had said he'd be back before dark. She stood at the window, watching the prairie turn gold, then orange, then purple with approaching dusk. In Philadelphia, she'd never noticed sunsets. Here, they were impossible to miss, vast and dramatic across the endless sky. Then she saw him. A single figure on horseback, riding steady toward the house. Relief flooded through her so intensely, she had to grip the window frame. By the time he reached the house, she had coffee brewing and was attempting biscuits. They wouldn't be good, she knew that. But she wanted to try, wanted to be useful. Daniel came in with a blast of cold air, his face wind-burned, his eyes tired. Then, he saw the table set, smelled the coffee, and smiled. "You didn't have to do that." "I wanted to." She poured him coffee with shaking hands. "The biscuits might be terrible. I don't care." He sat down heavily, accepting the cup. "Thank you, Sarah." They ate her terrible biscuits and some cold ham from the pantry. And somehow, it felt like the most important meal she'd ever shared. Daniel told her about the fence repair he'd done, the cattle he'd checked, the tracks he'd seen that might be mountain lion. "You should stay close to the house for now," he said, "until you know the land better." "I will." After dinner, they sat by the fire. Daniel read while Sarah attempted to mend one of his shirts, the fabric worn thin at the elbows. She wasn't skilled at sewing, but she could manage basic repairs. "Sarah." His voice made her look up. He'd set his book aside and was watching her with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "I've been thinking about something all day." "What is it?" "We should get married soon, before the baby comes." Her needle stilled. "Why?" "Because that child deserves a name. A real name, legally documented." His expression was earnest. "I meant what I said yesterday. I'll love that baby like my own. But for that to be true in the eyes of the law, we need to be married when the birth gets recorded." Tears stung her eyes. "You'd do that?" "I'd be honored to." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I'm not asking you to love me, Sarah. I know that's not part of this arrangement. But I'm asking you to let me give your child my name. Let me make sure that baby has every advantage, every protection I can provide." She set down the mending with trembling hands. "The father doesn't matter. Not to me. That man had his chance, and he failed you both. Now it's my turn." His voice was steady, certain. "I'll be the father, if you'll let me." "Yes." The word came out choked. "Yes, Daniel. Thank you." He nodded, satisfied. "We'll ride into town next week. Get the preacher. Make it official." He stood, stretching. "I should let you rest. Morning comes early on a ranch." But at the bedroom door, Sarah turned back. "Daniel, why are you doing this? Really?" He was quiet for a long moment, firelight flickering across his face. "Because I know what it's like to be alone. To feel like nobody wants you. Nobody cares if you live or die. and I swore if I ever had the chance to make sure someone else didn't feel that way, I'd take it. His eyes met hers. You and that baby are getting my name, my protection, and my best effort. That's a promise. She went to bed with those words echoing in her heart, feeling something she thought was dead beginning to stir back to life. Not love. Not yet. But the beginning of trust. The week that followed settled into a rhythm. Daniel worked from dawn to dusk, mending fences, tending cattle, preparing for winter. Sarah managed the house, learning to cook on the temperamental stove, keeping things clean, reading in the afternoons when her back ached too much for standing. They ate together morning and night, and slowly, tentatively, they began to talk. Real talk, not just polite exchanges. Daniel told her about growing up on a ranch in Wyoming, about losing his parents young, about drifting for years before settling here. She told him about Philadelphia, about her father's death leaving her penniless, about the man who'd promised her everything and delivered nothing but abandonment. He said he loved me. The words tasted bitter. Said we'd get married. Then I told him about the baby, and he was gone by morning. Daniel's jaw tightened. If I ever meet him, it won't go well. It doesn't matter now. It matters. He looked at her across the table, fierce and protective. It matters that he hurt you, that he lied to you. That matters, Sarah. Something in his intensity made her breath catch. She'd never had anyone defend her like that. Never had anyone look at her like she was worth protecting. On the 6th day, they rode into town. Sarah sat beside Daniel on the wagon seat, wrapped in a shawl against the October cold, watching the prairie roll past. The town was small, just a handful of buildings clustered around a main street, but it had a church with a bell tower and a general store with glass windows. People stared as they passed. Sarah felt their eyes on her belly, saw the quick calculations, the judgment forming. Daniel must have felt it too, because his hand found hers on the seat between them, squeezing gently. Let them look, he said quietly. They'll understand soon enough. The preacher was a kind man with gray hair and gentle eyes. He didn't ask questions when Daniel explained they wanted to marry quickly. Just nodded and opened his Bible. Do you have a ring? He asked. Daniel produced a simple gold band from his pocket. It was my mother's, if Sarah will accept it. She looked at the ring, then at Daniel's face, and felt something crack in her chest. This man who barely knew her was offering his mother's ring. His protection, his name. I'll be honored to wear it, she whispered. The ceremony was brief. Daniel's responses were steady and sure. Sarah's voice shook, but she got through it. When the preacher pronounced them married, Daniel kissed her cheek gently, respectfully. Nothing more. But his hand stayed in hers all the way back to the ranch, and that felt like more than she dared hope for. That night, after dinner, Sarah stood at the kitchen basin washing dishes. Daniel came up beside her, close but not touching. You're my wife now, he said quietly. I am. That means this is your house, your home, not just a place you're staying. He turned her gently to face him, his hands careful on her shoulders. I want you to feel safe here, Sarah. Safe and wanted. She looked up at him, this man who'd become her husband, and felt a strange tightness in her throat. I'm starting to. Good. He smiled, and it transformed his whole face, making him look younger, lighter. That's a start. He went to the barn to sleep, as he had every night, giving her space, giving her time. But as Sarah lay in bed that night, her hand on her belly and his mother's ring on her finger, she wondered how long it would be before she asked him to stay. November came with the first real cold. Sarah woke one morning to find frost coating the windows in delicate patterns. The world outside transformed into silver and white. Daniel was already up. She could hear him moving around the main room, feeding the fire. She dressed quickly, pulling on her warmest shawl, and emerged to find him making coffee. "Morning, wife." The word still sounded strange but sweet. "Cold enough for you?" "It's beautiful." "It's early. Wait until January." But he was smiling as he said it, and she found herself smiling back. They'd settled into a comfortable partnership over the past weeks. Daniel still slept in the barn, but their days were shared, their evenings spent by the fire talking or reading together. Sometimes she'd catch him watching her, something warm and wondering in his eyes, and her heart would skip. "I need to ride out to check on the cattle in the north pasture," he said over breakfast. "Might be gone most of the day. Will you be all right?" "I'll be fine. There's stew I made yesterday. Should be enough for lunch and dinner." "And?" "Daniel." She reached across the table, touching his hand. "I'll be fine. Go do what you need to do." He turned his hand over, capturing hers, his thumb stroking gently across her knuckles. "All right. But if anything happens, anything at all, you fire that rifle 3 times. I'll hear it and come running." After he left, Sarah cleaned the breakfast dishes, then settled by the fire with mending. The baby was active today, rolling and kicking, making her smile. She talked to the growing child as she worked, telling stories about her parents, about Philadelphia, about Daniel and this strange new life they were building. Around noon, she heard horses. Not Daniel's steady, familiar gait, but multiple horses moving fast. Her heart jumped into her throat. She set down her sewing and moved to the window. 3 men on horseback, riding hard toward the house. They didn't look like neighbors stopping by for a friendly visit. They looked rough, dangerous, the kind of men Daniel had warned her about. Sarah's hands shook as she reached for the Winchester above the door. It was heavier than she remembered, but she managed to check that it was loaded. Then she locked the door, moved away from the windows, and waited. The horses stopped outside. Boots hit the ground. Voices, rough and laughing. "Anyone home?" Someone pounded on the door, making her jump. "Come on out. We just want to talk." She gripped the rifle tighter, saying nothing. "I saw smoke from the chimney. Someone's in there." More pounding. "Open up, or we'll." Sarah fired 3 shots through the roof, the recoil slamming into her shoulder hard enough to make her stagger. The baby kicked in protest at the sudden movement. Outside, the men swore loudly, and she heard them scrambling for their horses. "Crazy woman shooting at us! Let's get out of here!" Hoofbeats thundered away. Sarah sank into a chair, the rifle across her lap, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. The baby kicked again, more gently this time, and she pressed her hand to the spot. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're okay." It felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes before she heard another horse approaching fast. This time she recognized the rider even before she saw him clearly. Daniel, riding like fury itself, his face a mask of controlled fear. She opened the door before he could dismount, and he was off his horse and across the porch in seconds, his hands framing her face, his eyes searching her frantically. "Are you hurt? What happened? Are you?" "I'm fine." Her voice was steadier than she felt. "3 men. They rode up, tried to get me to open the door. I fired 3 shots, and they left." "Which direction?" "East." He pulled her against him, one hand cradling the back of her head, the other careful around her back. She felt his heart pounding, felt the tremor in his strong body. "I'm sorry," he said roughly. "I should never have left you alone. I'm so sorry, Sarah. You couldn't have known." "I should have." He pulled back, looking at her, his eyes fierce. "You're really all right? The baby?" "We're both fine. Just shaken." He kept touching her arms, her shoulders, her face, like he needed to confirm she was real and whole. Finally, he cupped her face in both hands and kissed her. Not gently on the cheek like he had at their wedding. A real kiss, full of fear and relief and something else she couldn't quite name. When he pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "I thought I'd lost you," he said hoarsely. "I heard those shots, and I thought, I'm here. We're here." She covered his hands with hers. "You taught me well." I remembered. That night, he didn't go to the barn. He pulled a bedroll into the main room and made up a bed by the fire. "I'm not leaving you alone again," he said firmly. "Not until we know those men are long gone." Sarah didn't argue. The truth was, she didn't want him to leave. The house felt safer with him in it, the walls less fragile against the vast Montana night. They sat by the fire after dinner, closer than usual, Daniel's presence a steady comfort. The fear from earlier was fading, replaced by something warmer, something that had been building between them for weeks now. "You were brave today," Daniel said quietly. "I was terrified. Brave doesn't mean not afraid. It means doing what needs doing anyway." He looked at her, firelight dancing in his blue eyes. "You protected yourself and the baby. That took courage. You taught me how." "I taught you to shoot." The courage was already there. His hand found hers on the space between their chairs. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." Her heart kicked. "What is it?" "When I heard those shots, when I thought something might have happened to you." He stopped, his jaw working. "I realized something. This arrangement we made, this partnership, it's become more than that. At least for me." She couldn't breathe, couldn't look away from his face. "I've come to care for you," he continued, his voice rough with emotion. "Not just as my responsibility or my wife on paper. As Sarah, the woman who reads poetry by firelight and burns biscuits and talks to her baby like it can already understand. The woman who faced down 3 armed men without flinching." His hand tightened on hers. "I'm falling in love with you, and I needed you to know." The words hung in the air between them, honest and raw and terrifying in their vulnerability. Sarah felt tears slip down her cheeks, her throat too tight for speech. "You don't have to say anything back," Daniel said quickly. "I know this wasn't part of our agreement. I know you might not ever feel the same way. But I couldn't go another day without telling you the truth." "Daniel." She found her voice finally. shaky, but sure. I'm falling in love with you too. His eyes widened. You are? I think I started the day you looked at my belly and said you'd love us both. I just didn't know how to tell you. She touched his face, feeling the roughness of stubble, the warmth of his skin. You made me believe I could be wanted again, that I wasn't broken or ruined, that I deserved kindness. Sarah. He said her name like a prayer and pulled her into his arms, careful of her belly between them. You were never broken, never ruined. You're the strongest, bravest woman I've ever known. They held each other for a long time, the fire crackling beside them, the baby moving between them like a blessing. When they finally pulled apart, Daniel wiped the tears from her cheeks with gentle thumbs. I should still sleep out here, he said reluctantly. Give you space. Or. She took a breath, gathering courage. You could sleep in the bedroom, with me, as my husband. His breath caught. Are you sure? I'm sure. And she was. This man had earned her trust, her affection, her love. She wanted him close, wanted to wake up in his arms, wanted to build a real marriage, not just a legal arrangement. Sarah. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her mouth, soft and reverent. I'll make you happy. I swear it. You already do. That night, Sarah lay in Daniel's arms for the first time, feeling safe and cherished and loved. The baby kicked against where their bodies pressed together, and Daniel's hand moved to cover hers on her belly, both of them marveling at the life growing there. Our baby, he whispered in the darkness. Our baby, she agreed, and felt the last piece of her broken heart click back into place. Morning came with pale winter sunlight and the smell of snow on the wind. Sarah woke wrapped in warmth. Daniel's body curled protectively around hers, his hand still resting on her belly. The baby was quiet for now, peaceful. She studied his face in the gentle light. The strong lines, the dark lashes, the slight smile that curved his mouth even in sleep. Her husband. Not just in name anymore, but in truth. His eyes opened slowly, and the smile deepened when he saw her watching him. Morning, wife. Morning, husband. He pulled her closer, kissing her thoroughly, and she felt heat bloom through her body despite the cold air beyond the blankets. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. I could get used to waking up like this, he murmured against her hair. Good. Because I'm not letting you sleep in the barn ever again. He laughed, the sound rich and happy, and Sarah realized she'd never heard him laugh like that before. Free and unguarded. She wanted to hear it every day for the rest of her life. They spent the morning working together, Daniel bringing in firewood while Sarah made breakfast that was almost edible. The ease between them had shifted into something deeper, more intimate. Their hands found excuses to touch. Their eyes met and held across the room. When he passed behind her chair, his hand trailed across her shoulders, and she leaned into the contact. I need to ride to the Johnson place, Daniel said after breakfast. Tell them about those men yesterday. Make sure they haven't had trouble. But I don't want to leave you. I'll come with you. Sarah, it's cold out there. And the ride? I'll be fine. I want to meet the neighbors. And I don't want to be alone here. Not yet. She touched his arm. Please? He covered her hand with his. All right. But we bundle you up warm and if you get uncomfortable, we turn back immediately. The Johnson Ranch was an hour's ride, and Daniel kept the pace easy, checking on Sarah constantly. She sat before him on his horse, wrapped in blankets, his arms around her keeping her steady and warm. The intimacy of it made her heart race. The Johnsons were a couple in their 50s, with 3 grown children. Mrs. Johnson took one look at Sarah's belly and Daniel's protective stance and smiled knowingly. Well now, Daniel Chambers finally got himself a wife. About time, too. They stayed for lunch, Daniel explaining about the 3 men. Mr. Johnson's expression turned grim. We've heard about a gang working this area, rustlers mostly, but they're not shy about robbing homesteads either. He looked at Daniel seriously. You need to be careful, especially with a wife and baby coming. I will be. On the ride home, Sarah felt Daniel's arms tighten around her. Maybe we should go into town. Stay at the hotel until... No. She turned her head to look at him. This is our home. We're not running from it. I just want you safe. We're safer together. Here, where we know the land. She leaned back against his chest. I'm not afraid, Daniel. Not with you. His lips brushed her temple. You're something else, Sarah Chambers. The name sent a thrill through her. Sarah Chambers. His wife in every way now. His partner. His love. December came with heavy snow that blanketed the prairie in white silence. The world contracted to the warmth of the house, the glow of firelight, the comfort of Daniel's presence. Sarah's belly grew rounder each day, the baby more active, and Daniel was fascinated by every movement. Feel that? Sarah would guide his hand to where tiny feet pushed out. That's an elbow, I think. Strong, Daniel would say with pride. Going to be a fighter like the mother. They spent evenings by the fire, Daniel reading aloud while Sarah knitted, attempting to make baby clothes with varying success. She wasn't skilled with yarn, but Daniel praised every crooked booty and misshapen blanket like they were treasures. You're humoring me, she accused one night, laughing. I'm admiring your effort. He pulled her close, his hand spanning her belly. This baby is going to be so loved, Sarah. So wanted. Because of you. Because of us. Christmas came and went quietly. Daniel surprised her with a rocking chair he'd been making in secret in the barn. Beautiful smooth wood with their initials carved into the back. She gave him a shirt she'd sewn, the stitches careful, and even after weeks of practice. They exchanged gifts in front of the fire, and Daniel kissed her with a tenderness that made her cry. I love you, he said, the words coming easier now. I love you so much, Sarah. I love you too. I never thought I could feel this way again. This happy. This safe. You are safe. Always. His hand moved to her belly. Both of you. January arrived with brutal cold that kept them inside for days at a time. Sarah's back ached constantly now, her feet swollen, her sleep restless. Daniel was endlessly patient, rubbing her feet by the fire, supporting her when she needed to walk, bringing her whatever she craved at odd hours. You don't have to do all this, she protested one night when he brought her warm milk at 2 a.m. Yes, I do. You're carrying our child. The least I can do is make you comfortable. He sat beside her on the bed, brushing hair from her face. How are you feeling? Enormous, tired, ready for this baby to arrive. She smiled at him. But happy. So happy, Daniel. Me too. He kissed her gently. Get some rest. Morning comes early. But in the dark hours before dawn, Sarah woke to a sharp pain that took her breath away. At first she thought it was just the usual discomfort. But then it came again, stronger. And she realized with a jolt of fear and excitement what was happening. Daniel! She shook his shoulder. Daniel! Wake up! He was alert instantly. What's wrong? The baby. It's coming. She'd never seen him move so fast. Within minutes, he had the fire roaring, water heating, blankets prepared. His hands shook as he helped her from the bed to the rocking chair by the fire. It's too early, he said, trying to keep his voice calm. You said March. Babies come when they're ready. Another pain gripped her, and she gasped. We need the midwife, Mrs. Patterson in town. That's 2 hours there and back, Sarah. I can't leave you alone that long. Then you're going to have to help me deliver this baby yourself. The fear in his eyes was almost comical. I've delivered calves and foals, but a baby is the same principle. She tried to smile through the pain. You can do this, Daniel. We can do this. The labor was long and hard. Sarah had known it would be, but nothing had prepared her for the reality of it. The pain came in waves that built and crashed, stealing her breath, her strength, her sense of time. Through it all, Daniel stayed beside her, his hand gripping hers, his voice steady and encouraging even when she could see the terror in his eyes. You're doing so well, he kept saying. So brave, Sarah. So strong. I can't. Yes, you can. You can do anything. He wiped her face with a cool cloth. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Hours passed. The winter sun rose, pale and cold outside the windows. Inside, the fire burned hot, and Sarah labored with everything she had. Daniel coaching her through each contraction, supporting her when she thought she couldn't bear another moment. I see the head, Daniel said finally, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah, the baby's crowning. One more push. Just one more. She gathered every bit of strength she had left and pushed with a cry that seemed to echo forever. Then suddenly, miraculously, there was a different sound. A tiny, indignant wail that filled the cabin with the most beautiful noise Sarah had ever heard. It's a girl. Daniel's voice broke on the words. Sarah, we have a daughter. Through tears of exhaustion and joy, Sarah watched Daniel wrap their baby in soft blankets. His big hands impossibly gentle. His face transformed with wonder. When he placed the tiny bundle in her arms, she looked down at a small, perfect face, red and wrinkled and absolutely beautiful. Hello, little one, she whispered. Welcome to the world. The baby had dark hair, still wet and plastered to her tiny skull, and when her eyes opened briefly, they were deep blue. She was small but healthy, her lungs clearly strong from the way she was crying. She's perfect, Daniel said, kneeling beside the chair, his finger touching the baby's tiny hand. Immediately, small fingers wrapped around his, gripping tight. Look at that. She knows her papa already. Sarah looked at him, this man who had saved her life in every way that mattered, and felt her heart overflow. What should we name her? What do you want to call her? She thought for a moment, looking at the baby's face. then at Daniel's. Hope. Because that's what you gave us. Hope for a future we never thought we'd have. Hope. Daniel tested the name, then smiled. Hope Chambers. It's perfect. He helped Sarah to bed, settled her comfortably with pillows, then laid Hope in her arms. The baby had stopped crying now, her eyes closed, her tiny mouth working even in sleep. Daniel stretched out beside them, careful not to jostle, his hand resting protectively on Sarah's shoulder. "You were amazing," he said softly. "I've never been so scared in my life, but you were so brave. I had you with me. That made all the difference." They lay together in the growing morning light, their daughter between them, and Sarah felt a peace so complete it was almost painful. This was family. This was home. This was the happy ending she'd stopped believing in. The days that followed were a blur of feeding, changing, soothing, and marveling. Hope was a good baby, sleeping well between feedings, rarely fussy. Daniel was completely besotted, holding her for hours, talking to her in a soft voice, showing her the world through the windows. "See those mountains?" he'd say, holding her carefully in his arms. "That's where we live. Big, beautiful Montana. You're going to love it here." Sarah would watch them together, her heart so full it hurt. Daniel had taken to fatherhood like he was born for it, natural and gentle and endlessly patient. He got up in the night when Hope cried, changing her and bringing her to Sarah for feeding, then walking her back to sleep afterward. "You need to rest," he'd insist. "You did all the hard work. Let me handle the nights. You need sleep too. You have the ranch to run. Ranch will keep. My girls need me more. My girls." The words made her smile every time. 2 weeks after Hope's birth, Sarah was sitting in the rocking chair, nursing the baby, when she heard horses outside. Daniel was instantly alert, moving to the window, his hand on the rifle. "It's the Johnsons," he said with relief, "and Mrs. Patterson is with them." The midwife examined both Sarah and Hope, clucking approvingly at their health. "You did well, Daniel Chambers. Not many men could deliver a baby on their own. I didn't have a choice. And Sarah did all the real work." Mrs. Patterson stayed for lunch, sharing news from town. The gang of rustlers had been caught 2 counties over. The winter had been harsh, but not unbearable. The general store had new fabric in stock if Sarah wanted to make some dresses when she was feeling stronger. After they left, Sarah stood at the window, holding Hope, watching Daniel walk Mrs. Patterson to her wagon. The midwife said something that made him laugh, his head thrown back, his whole body expressing joy. Sarah's chest tightened with love so fierce it almost scared her. This was her family. This was her home. This was everything she'd thought she'd lost forever, given back to her by a man who'd looked at her growing belly and chosen love over judgment. February melted into March, the snow slowly receding, revealing brown prairie grass and the first hints of green. Hope grew, her eyes staying the deep blue of her father's, her smile appearing more frequently. She loved being held, loved hearing Daniel's voice, loved the rocking chair where Sarah sang to her. "She looks like you," Sarah said one evening, studying Hope's face. "She has your smile and your stubbornness." "I'm not stubborn." "You are. It's one of the things I love about you." He kissed her temple, his arms around both his wife and daughter. "You never give up." Never stop fighting. I learned that from you. No. You already knew it. I just reminded you. The days grew longer, warmer. Daniel started working on expanding the house, adding a proper nursery for Hope. Sarah watched him work, the baby on a blanket beside her in the spring sunshine, and felt contentment settle into her bones. One morning in early April, Sarah woke to find Daniel already dressed, standing by the window with Hope in his arms. He was talking softly to her, pointing out the window at something. "What are you showing her?" Sarah asked, coming to stand beside them. "The first flowers. See there? Those purple ones. Wild iris." He glanced at Sarah, his eyes warm. "Thought our daughter should see her first spring." Sarah leaned her head on his shoulder, looking out at the prairie coming back to life. Flowers blooming, grass greening, birds returning. Everything waking up, just like she had woken up when she stepped off that stagecoach 6 months ago. "I never thanked you properly," she said quietly. "For what?" "For saving my life, for giving me a home, for loving my baby like she's yours. She is mine." He looked down at Hope, then at Sarah. "You're both mine, and I'm yours. That's what family means." Sarah rose on her toes and kissed him, soft and sweet, the baby between them cooing contentedly. When they pulled apart, Daniel was smiling. "I love you, Sarah Chambers. I love you too. So much." They stood together at the window, watching spring arrive, their daughter in Daniel's arms, the future stretching bright and hopeful before them. Sarah thought back to that desperate, terrified woman who'd stepped off the stagecoach and barely recognized herself. That woman had been running from her past, expecting nothing but rejection. This woman was home. The spring days brought new routines and deeper contentment. Hope thrived, growing stronger each day, her personality emerging. She was a happy baby, quick to smile, fascinated by everything around her. Daniel doted on her shamelessly, carrying her with him when he worked near the house, talking to her constantly. "She's going to think in complete sentences before she can walk," Sarah teased one afternoon, watching him explain cattle breeding to their 3-month-old daughter. "She should know about the ranch. It'll be hers someday." "Ours," Sarah corrected gently. "Hers and any other children we might have." Daniel's eyes lit up. "You want more?" "Eventually. When Hope is older. If you do, I want everything with you, Sarah. A house full of children. A thriving ranch. 50 years of mornings waking up beside you." He pulled her close, careful of the baby between them. "I want it all." One morning in late April, Sarah was hanging laundry when she saw riders approaching. 3 of them, moving at an easy pace. Her heart jumped, old fear resurfacing. But these men looked official. As they got closer, she recognized the badge on the lead rider's vest. Sheriff. Daniel emerged from the barn, wiping his hands on his pants, his expression wary but calm. "Sheriff Morrison, what brings you out this way?" The sheriff, a weathered man in his 50s, dismounted slowly. "Morning, Daniel. Mrs. Chambers." He nodded to Sarah. "Sorry to disturb you folks, but I need to ask some questions." "About what?" "About Mrs. Chambers here. About where she came from, and who she's running from." Sarah's blood ran cold. Daniel's hand found hers instantly, gripping tight. "I'm not running from anyone," Sarah said, forcing her voice steady. "That's so?" The sheriff pulled out a folded paper. "Because I got a telegram from Philadelphia. Man named Richard Morrison is looking for a woman matching your description. Says she stole from him and disappeared." The name hit Sarah like a physical blow. Richard Morrison. The man who'd gotten her pregnant and abandoned her. "That's a lie," she said, her voice shaking with fury now instead of fear. "He's the one who stole. He took my trust, my innocence, and left me with nothing. He says different. Says you took money and jewelry belonging to his family. I took nothing. I had nothing. He made sure of that." Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "Whatever he told you is a lie." Daniel stepped forward, his expression dangerous. "My wife has nothing to answer for. That man abandoned her when she was pregnant, left her with no resources, no protection, no recourse. If anyone should be answering questions, it's him." The sheriff looked between them, his weathered face thoughtful. "So the baby is mine," Daniel said firmly. "My daughter. Legally, morally, in every way that matters. And this Richard Morrison has no claim, no rights, no place in our lives." Daniel's arm came around Sarah's shoulders, protective and possessive. "If he has a problem with that, he can take it up with me." The sheriff was quiet for a moment, studying them both. Then he folded the paper and tucked it back in his pocket. "You know what I think? I think a man who abandons a woman in trouble ain't got much moral standing to make accusations. And I think a man who marries that woman and raises her child as his own is the kind of man this territory needs more of." Sarah felt her knees go weak with relief. Daniel's arm tightened around her. "I'll send a telegram back to Philadelphia," the sheriff continued. "Tell them there's no Sarah Montgomery here. Just Sarah Chambers, respectable rancher's wife, living quiet and legal. That satisfy you folks?" "Yes, sir," Daniel said. "Thank you." After the sheriff left, Sarah collapsed into Daniel's arms, shaking. He held her tight, one hand cradling her head against his chest, the other rubbing soothing circles on her back. "It's over," he murmured. "He can't touch you, can't hurt you or hope. You're safe. He tried to ruin me. Even now, after everything, he tried. And failed. Because you're stronger than he ever understood. Because you have people who love you and protect you." He pulled back, framing her face in his hands. "You're not alone anymore, Sarah. You never will be again." She kissed him hard, pouring all her love and gratitude and relief into it. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, she saw hope through the window, sleeping peacefully in her cradle, unaware of the danger that had just passed over them. "Our daughter is safe," Daniel said, following her gaze. "Our family is safe. That's all that matters." That evening, as they sat by the fire with hope between them on a blanket, Sarah felt the last shadow of her past lift away. Richard Morrison had tried one last time to hurt her, to control her, to make her pay for daring to escape his cruelty, and he'd failed completely. Because she wasn't the desperate, broken woman he remembered. She was Sarah Chambers. Wife, mother, survivor. Loved and protected and home. May brought warmer weather and the first real heat of approaching summer. The prairie bloomed with wildflowers, and Sarah would take hope outside in the mornings. letting her daughter feel sunshine on her face, hear birds singing, watch clouds drift across the endless blue sky. Daniel expanded the vegetable garden, teaching Sarah what to plant and when. They worked side by side in the warm earth, Hope nearby on a blanket, and Sarah thought about how far she'd come from the city girl who'd never touched soil before. "You're a natural at this," Daniel said, watching her carefully plant tomato seedlings. "I had a good teacher." "You have good instincts. This," he gestured at the garden, the house, the land around them. "This life suits you." It did. That was the surprising truth. She loved the quiet mornings, the hard work, the satisfaction of growing things. She loved the vast sky and the distant mountains and the way every sunset painted the world in gold. She loved the simplicity, the honesty, the realness of it all. Most of all, she loved the man beside her, his hands dirty from the earth, his face lit with quiet happiness, his eyes always finding hers and holding with a warmth that never faded. "Daniel," she said suddenly, "do you ever regret it? Answering my letter? Taking on a pregnant woman you'd never met?" He sat back on his heels, considering the question seriously. "Not once. Not even for a second. You and Hope are the best things that ever happened to me, Sarah. You took this lonely house and made it a home. You took my empty life and filled it with love and laughter and purpose." He reached across the space between them, his dirt-covered hand finding hers. "I thank God every day that you got on that stagecoach." She squeezed his hand, tears threatening, happy tears this time. "I love you. I love you too. Always." They finished the garden as the sun climbed higher, then retreated inside to escape the midday heat. Sarah nursed Hope while Daniel prepared a cold lunch, and they ate together at the table that had become the center of their family life. "Johnson stopped by yesterday while you were resting," Daniel said. "Asked if we'd come to their barn dance next month." "A dance?" "Town celebration. Everyone comes. Music, food, dancing." He smiled. "I thought you might like to go. Get dressed up. Meet more neighbors. Can we bring Hope? Wouldn't dream of leaving her behind. She'll be the prettiest girl there." Sarah imagined it. A real social event. Dancing with her husband. Introducing their daughter to the community. Being part of something bigger than just their small ranch. It sounded wonderful. "I'd love to go." "Good. I'll let Johnson know." He paused. "I should warn you, though. There'll be questions. About how we met. About the baby. About the timing of everything. Let them ask. We have nothing to hide." "No, we don't." He reached across the table, taking her hand. "We have a good story, Sarah. A true story about second chances and love overcoming judgment. I'm proud of it. So am I." The dance was 6 weeks away, but Sarah found herself looking forward to it with increasing excitement. She had one nice dress, the deep blue one she'd worn for their wedding, but it didn't fit right anymore after the pregnancy. Daniel noticed her trying it on one evening and frowning at her reflection. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. It's just I don't have anything appropriate to wear." "Then we'll get fabric in town. Mrs. Patterson said she'd help you sew something new." "Daniel, we can't afford." "Yes, we can. The cattle sales went well this spring. We can afford a dress for my beautiful wife." He came up behind her, his hands on her waist, meeting her eyes in the mirror. I want to see you in something pretty. Something that makes you feel as beautiful as you are." She leaned back against him, studying their reflection. A rancher and his wife, both sun-weathered and work-worn, but happy. So deeply happy. "Okay," she said softly. A new dress. The next week they rode into town, Hope bundled carefully in Sarah's arms. At the general store, Sarah selected a lovely burgundy fabric with tiny flowers, soft and feminine. Mrs. Patterson took her measurements and promised the dress would be ready in time for the dance. "You're looking well, Sarah," the older woman said kindly. "Motherhood agrees with you." "Thank you. I'm happy. It shows. And that husband of yours, he looks at you like you hung the moon." Sarah glanced out the window, where Daniel stood talking with Mr. Patterson, Hope cradled in one arm. Even from a distance, she could see the gentle way he held their daughter, the protective curve of his body, the love that radiated from every gesture. "He's a good man. The best. You're lucky to have found each other." Lucky. Yes. But also brave. They'd both taken risks, both opened their hearts despite fear and past pain. That took more than luck. That took courage. The night of the barn dance arrived with perfect summer weather. Sarah dressed carefully in her new burgundy gown, her hair pinned up with small wildflowers Daniel had picked. When she emerged from the bedroom, Daniel stopped mid-motion, staring at her with such open admiration that she blushed. "You're beautiful," he said simply. "So are you." He was wearing his best clothes, his dark hair neatly combed, his face clean-shaven. He looked handsome and strong and completely hers. They arrived at the Johnson barn as the sun was setting, the building glowing with lantern light and filled with music. People greeted them warmly, admiring Hope, welcoming Sarah genuinely. If anyone had questions about the timing of their marriage and Hope's birth, they kept them to themselves. Daniel led Sarah onto the dance floor, one arm around her waist, the other holding hers. Hope was safe with Mrs. Johnson, surrounded by admiring women. As they moved together to the music, Sarah felt the last piece of her old fear dissolve completely. "Happy?" Daniel asked, his eyes searching hers. "So happy. More than I ever thought possible." "Good. Because this is just the beginning, Sarah. We have our whole lives ahead of us. I can't wait." They danced until late, laughing and talking with neighbors, feeling the warmth of community acceptance. When Hope grew fussy, they said their goodbyes and rode home under a sky full of stars. At the ranch, Daniel carried a sleeping Hope inside, while Sarah followed, tired but content. After laying their daughter in her cradle, Daniel pulled Sarah into his arms. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" "For taking a chance on me. For building this life with me. For giving me a family." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, finally her lips. "For loving me. That's the easiest thing I've ever done." She touched his face tenderly. "You saved me, Daniel. In every way a person can be saved." "No. We saved each other." And that, Sarah thought as they stood together in the quiet house, their daughter sleeping peacefully nearby, was the truth. They'd both been lost, both been broken, both been alone. But together they'd built something beautiful. A home, a family, a love that would last. Outside, the Montana night stretched peaceful and clear. Inside, the fire burned low and warm. Sarah and Daniel stood at the window, his arms around her, both of them looking out at the land that was theirs, the life they'd created, the future that waited bright with promise. "I love you," Sarah whispered. "I love you too. Always." They had found their happy ending, not in spite of their pasts, but because of them. Every hardship had led them here. Every broken piece had been made whole. And standing together in the home they'd built, with their daughter sleeping peacefully and their love stronger than ever, they knew this was just the beginning of their forever.